Welcome back, everybody. Understanding CBD. I am Max Sobel.
I am Stephen Wallman.
Here every Sunday with you, WCBM AM 680, Talk Radio 2 to 3. Couple things real quick. So if you'd like to get a hold of us for the next half hour or so, the number here to reach us is 410-922-6680. And the show, as you know, is sponsored by Max and Stevens. Steven would like to say that they sponsor this, but it's actually us. And you can reach us anytime after the show at 443-743-2444. That number is good to call, and that number is also good to text. Well, as things would have it, you know, people are strange, times are strange, sometimes we have to learn to adapt. Stephen and I very well know how to adapt because of circumstantial situations.
Absolutely.
One of them being which the fact that Janelle was not able to join us. Technical difficulties we're going to assume, but if she happens to call in the next half hour, then obviously we'll have her on and we'll have our regular scheduled interview. But as situations would have it,
I mean, we still have to make a decision. We
have to
still
improvise.
have to discuss full spectrum.
Oh, we said it in Unity. We didn't even plan that.
It's important to us, right?
That's right. It's absolutely important to us, and I think that what we should really just focus on is educating the audience about full spectrum, really covering the topics that we were otherwise going to speak to Janelle about, and let's make the best of it and try to have a fantastic show.
Yeah, maybe someone wants to call in and give us their perspective.
Right.
You know, some of the research that Max and I do for you all year is really looking through data and what is happening in the industry, not only from a manufacturer's perspective, but what do consumers want? What are consumers buying? So we got a report from Brightfield Group, and it does a nice retrospective look. And people like to say that, you know, hindsight is 20/20 now because it's the new saying. Actually, we have a business called Hindsight RX, don't we, Max?
Yeah, that's a little trivia for the audience there.
That's right. That's right. But it looks back through the year, and it's really, there were a few surprises, but some of them not really. Like they really measure things by percentage of shelf space.
Right.
And it's a consumer, a retail, wholesale distribution type of network. Like, what are people buying? But not only so forth, what are the shelf space speaking to us? And you know, what percentage of shelf space is out there? And then what percentage of shelf space is being used or consumed by consumers?
And we're specifically talking about the medical marijuana products and program.
That's a majority of the data that they do have because it's just such a bigger industry. But they do have CBD there, too.
Right.
And from what they were talking from a CBD perspective was in general, and the way companies are positioning their products, because that's a lot of really the industry is, you know, as we say, the plant is the plant, Mother Nature is what it is, but humans can be creative, so they make all these different products for you that you would want, like, like maybe they would make a gummy because it's something to chew or something more flavorful or whatnot. But the general positioning of these products, like an example would be stress relief.
Stress relief, right.
Versus sleep.
Right.
You know, or self-care,
right.
You know, or something like that.
So they try to categorize them.
Yeah, they put them in different, positioning categories. And the one that grew, I think, the most this past year, which isn't really going to be surprising, is the amount of space, and it was by 10%, is relaxation and stress relief.
Okay.
Those two combined increased their shelf space by 10%, while beauty care and personal care were both declining, and also intimacy as well.
I mean, it's really not a surprise. I mean, it's, the pandemic, so people stress.
I know. I mean, I put my jeans on today just to see if they were still going to work because I've been wearing sweatpants.
I know. Jeans was like a day out.
I know.
Out and about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jeans and a shirt. I mean, it's, completely different.
Yeah.
But that's, so really nothing surprising there from the report, though. But the other stats from the dispensaries, Max, that you were talking about, the biggest increase in space, which was, I guess, not surprising, but candy.
Candy. Well, look, everybody wants a treat, right? They interpret it as a vice, I guess, right? And everybody likes that sweet taste, so they want the candy. We feel very, very specific about this.
I know, and this is where, I think we need to be more open. I'm open. I'm open now. I want to have this conversation. Doc G can really help with this conversation too.
Well, let's start the audience off with, or just everybody that we're talking to. Let's start the reason why what we always say, why we don't want to do gummies and candy. Why, right? Because there's sugar and additives and other stuff in it.
Right, and it's actually when we were watching Mandalorian the other day, you were there.
Yeah, of course I was there.
And we're always, this is a something that's always on Max and my head is do more products. What new products can we bring?
Right.
And I said, Zach,
Your son.
My son, Zach, would you use CBD more if it were a gummy?
Yes. Like he didn't even stutter. He said yes.
Instantly, yes.
Right, but then he followed up.
He did.
He said, would it do different things to me? Would it react differently? Would I feel different? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It was a good question because it's important. And that's sort of the crux of our challenge,
right?
Which is, what's better for you versus, what you would prefer for yourself.
But we have a belief about that, and the answer is yes, that it would work differently.
It would work different.
Yeah.
For sure, for certain. It's not even a question. Would it be different?
Right.
And it's the medical marijuana space is also different from the CBD space because in the THC is a different molecule than CBD.
Right.
And it has different effects on people. It has an intoxicating effect.
It has an intoxicating
so
effect.
When you're looking for a little bit of intoxicating, high from it, taking a gummy kind of fun might be good because the research is saying that tinctures, which ours is an extraction or a tincture, or even the capsules, is too clinical.
Right. Right. And it really all depends on what you're trying to solve for. I mean, if you're looking for something recreational, that's not us. That's not our market. That's not where we
I know, but then I understand that people want it, and then there's the other question, which is, if you don't use any CBD,
right,
would it be better to use CBD in a tea or CBD in a gummy?
Right.
Or if you're not going to use ours topically, would it be better to use a CBD mixed in with something else?
It's interesting that you said tea because in that same report, the least amount of growth, or one of the categories with the least amount of growth, were the cannabis-infused drinks. Interestingly enough.
That was a huge flop, right?
Well, not only a huge flop, but sort of a surprise, too, because you would think that would be a popular thing. Now, you and I, being, playing inside baseball, I mean, we know that that's not going to jive, right, for a lot of different chemical reasons. I mean, look, people have found ways to supposedly solve that problem, but we know that doesn't jive. But to your average consumer, you would think if they walk into a store and they see a CBD-infused, soda, drink, juice, whatever, you'd think that that'd be something that they'd be attracted to. I'm actually surprised that didn't pick up.
Well, it's one of those first things that you hear about. You're like, oh my God, they have a CBD drink. It's that easy? I can get my CBD through a drink?
They have water infused with CBD. I mean, I'm drinking water anyway. Why not drink it infused with CBD?
It reminds me of this study I read a while ago about potato chips, and they talk about how one of these consumer groups. Have you ever done some of these?
Sure. The consumer, like the panel things?
Yeah, where they bring you in and they ask you a question about the
fun times.
The studies. So they did on potato chips.
I try to be the most psychotic person in the room every time I'm in that position, just to see what happens. Just throw them off.
I'm sure that's really difficult for you to play that role
terribly
too, Max,
difficult.
Right? So the potato chip story is essentially when you have the consumers, you line up potato chips from left to right, left being the healthiest and right being the most unhealthy. They always like the most unhealthy chip. But if you ask them which chip would they prefer, they're always going to tell you they want the chip on the left, the healthiest.
Right.
So there's that balance as a product company.
What I should do versus what I actually do.
Right. And a lot of companies, a lot of CBD brands last year didn't make it out. That's the hard truth.
It's the hard truth.
It's the hard truth, and it's a testament to the way we do business. And the way we care about our customers and what's most important. Not only do we lead you in the right direction, we're not here for the quick buck, and it shows.
We're not trying to make any claims to you. We're not trying to tell you it's going to solve all your problems. We just want to make sure that what we say is in the bottle.
is in the bottle.
Yeah, so our little plug there.
I am going to bring in Doc G here. He called in early. And we want to get him on the line and get his perspective on
Doc
this.
G.
Because I would love to have his opinion on this. Hey, Doc, I'm not sure if you've been listening to us, but in a nutshell, Max and I are stuck with this dilemma, and I know you can help. And it's the dilemma that people ask us all the time, and I'm sure you get this probably more than us, is, I like the tincture, but I really want something like a gummy. Or can you make it taste like wine, right, Doc? Can you make it?
Yeah, and I can. That's one of the difficulties in CBD production, and one of the issues with overmarketed CBD as well. It turns out that, as you mentioned about gummies and additives in CBD, it turns out that many of these additives and flavorings get in the way of some of how the compounds in full-spectrum CBD work. The terpenes, actually. They get in the way of the full effect of CBD to help a condition. And it depends on what condition we're talking about, too. So that's part of the difficulty of the flavorings and different types. And just as an FYI, it turns out that peppermint is probably one of the only flavorings, one of the only terpenes that doesn't get in the way of the other terpenes within a full spectrum CBD. Just a little note there.
That's interesting because I've always thought about the additives as just being detrimental to your body, right? Like, so your body theoretically shouldn't have a lot of sugar. But
And
it's
there's
interesting.
that aspect. Oh, absolutely. Especially artificial sweeteners that, for example, can change the way your gut, the bacteria in your gut regulates your entire physiologic system and how you digest foods. So a lot of people don't realize that. And also triggers things in the brain, certain parts of the brain and the hypothalamus that makes you want more of something, more of sweeteners, more of sweet, even though it's a sugar-free, so to speak. It's still not a, not free of safety issues.
Yeah. The reason, I mean, we have that discussion because people may or may not have an issue with the flavor, the natural flavor of the plant, right? So that's where that whole discussion comes in. It's like, what's a more palatable vehicle for me to introduce this into my body? They know they need to have it or should have it. They just want to know how better to introduce it.
And then some of the other factors that play a role is, different people genetically have different ways of responding to different tastes. And since CBD and the terpenes of CBD are more bitter than, especially if you get it down to its pure full spectrum form, or if you nanotize it even more so, you make the molecule smaller, in other words, makes it even more bitter. So it can be a little tough for those people who are sensitive to bitter. And of course, for those who like bitter, well, they're okay with that.
Yeah. And, my perspective on this, Doc, has always been the richness in what Mother Nature has provided in the cannabis plant itself. There's a richness in the cannabinoid profiles, the terpene profiles.
An earthy type of richness.
Yeah. And that itself is where I want to explore. That's the area that I feel we can really add value to, while everyone else is trying to appease the consumer, and I understand that. And maybe we will also. Maybe we have to listen to our customers, or we will die. But I think we really want them to hear our message, and they can say, "All right, we hear you, but we still want a gummy." You know what I mean?
Right.
That's fine.
Right.
That's fine. That's fine.
Well, make that gummy a peppermint.
No, that's a good point.
It's a really good point, and it might be actually what we do, because that's the advice we need.
Well, so there is the addition of externally generated terpenes that aren't.
And there's other flavors that actually you might think would do well. Things like vanilla, which is good for most people. Most common, I think it's the number one ice cream flavor, right, that people want in this country. The problem with vanilla is you mix vanilla with CBD, then you get more of a really hardcore medicine-y taste.
Right.
And then that's just not palatable for most people.
Well, that's awesome. Hey, Doc, unique opportunity. Will you introduce your segment coming up right after the break?
You get to introduce yourself.
Sure, I'll introduce myself. Absolutely.
All right, let's do it.
Thanks, Doc.